Welcome back. Trump's latest statements regarding NATO have widened even more so the fear of a Trump re-election in the worldwide leaders and allies of the United States, but it also highlights the isolationists that he is promoting. Trump's NATO threats reflect a wider shift in America's place in the world. Former President Donald Trump's recent remarks at a campaign rally in South Carolina suggesting support for Russia to attack NATO allies who didn't pay underscored a significant shift in American attitudes towards long-standing international alliances. The enthusiastic response from Trump supporters reflects a broader sentiment among some Americans who view traditional alliances as burdensome relics of the past. This shift signals a departure from the post-World War II consensus on U.S. leadership in global security. The erosion of support for international alliances like NATO stems from various factors, including globalization, military engagements in Iraq and Afghanistan, economic challenges such as the Great Recession, and Trump's skepticism towards international institutions and agreements. While polls indicate enduring support for alliances, vocal opposition suggests a growing preference among some segments of the American public for isolationism, reminiscent of early 20th century sentiments. The tension between nationalist tendencies and international cooperation is evident in recent political developments. Trump's pledge to end foreign aid without repayment and House Republicans' rejection of a $95 billion security aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan exemplified this shift towards neo-isolationism. Even prominent Republican hawks like Senator Lindsey Graham have aligned with Trump's stance, prioritizing domestic concerns over international commitments. The resurgence of neo-isolationism poses challenges for U.S. diplomacy and strategic alliances, prompting Vice President Kamala Harris, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and other officials to reassure allies at the Munich Security Conference. Despite efforts to allay concerns, the withdrawal of staunch supporters of international engagement like Graham from key diplomatic roles reflects the changing dynamics of U.S. foreign policy. Let's remind everybody, NATO was created as an alliance of the Western free countries against communism and the USSR threat, the Soviet Union threat. Yes, the fall of the Soviet Union, some have questioned the necessity of continuing this alliance. However, these allies stood by the United States after the September 11th attacks on us. These NATO allies came to our side and continued to fight when we were in Afghanistan as well as in Iraq. Right or wrong on those wars, they were there. They were stalwart. They have been by our side. So now the big question is the United States now going on its own path and rejecting its own long-standing relationships with these allies? Now, Trump has been stating that he's not saying an outright. Now, he's always questioned or criticized the amount of funding the United States has provided NATO as it relates to other countries in comparison, because everybody's supposed to provide 2% of their defense budget. Now, while President Trump was in office, yes, some of the NATO countries have increased their funding towards NATO. Germany, for example, increased the amount that it was providing to NATO. Now, what Trump is stating is saying, I just want people to pay us back. So if you're not going to pay, then sure. Once again, it's typical Trump. Opening his mouth, insert foot. He does his hyperbolic type of rhetoric saying that if countries of NATO don't pay, then fine, let Russia roll over them. Some of the senators, such as Marco Rubio, are saying, oh, that's just Trump. He just is very blustery. He's not a typical politician. He likes to think and say what he thinks without filtering. But it's still warrants a serious discussion as to what kind of leader is Trump when he is now putting our allies, long-term allies, on the defensive and questioning the veracity of the United States. We will continue to follow this as, Biden administration are trying to do a cleanup job, and what Trump is going to explain yet again away what his rhetoric has initiated once again. But going from Trump's lovely statements regarding NATO to RFK Jr., this is why I'm wearing some purple today. We are going to talk about the independent candidate for president, RFK Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s presidential campaign faces heightened scrutiny and internal discord following a controversial Super Bowl ad by the American Values Super PAC, which supports his candidacy. Now, first of all, I have to say, this ad placement was genius. First of all, this Super PAC did an ad in the Super Bowl, and they were the only candidate to place an ad. Secondly, this ad was a throwback to when JFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s uncle, first ran for president, or the only time he ran for president and won. But strategically, they were reaching out beyond the younger generations of Gen X, millennials, or Gen Zs. They were specifically targeting boomers who have name recognition and a sense of affiliation to the Kennedy name. And that's what it is. And let's face it, for an audience of what, I think it was upwards of 50 million people, or the greatest, show on earth is the Super Bowl here in the United States. It impacted and reached many, many people. And that was the point. More boomers are likely to react to this advertisement run on the biggest stage of sports, which is the NFL Super Bowl. That was their sole purpose. But it has also caused drama, not total chaos. That will leave to Trump. But it has created some drama within the Kennedy family as well as the DNC, which the DNC has done everything they could to thwart Robert Kennedy Jr.'s campaign, which actually forced him to go into independent because the DNC would not even allow him the opportunity for debating Biden. They basically, stated that Biden was their candidate. Now, this ad, which again is evoking the legacy of the Kennedy allure, the Democratic family, which was the brand for so long for the Democratic Party, it drew sharp criticism from his relatives and political observers, prompting Kennedy to issue an apology for the offense on X, formerly known as Twitter. The ad's portrayal of Kennedy's late family members and its lack of focus on policy issues exacerbated tensions within the Kennedy family, with some members expressing dismay over his views on healthcare and vaccines. Critics accused Kennedy of capitalizing on his name recognition and running an independent campaign, primarily based on his family legacy. Well, let's think about that. Bill Clinton, when he ran, former President Bill Clinton, he was constantly saying how he was a Kennedy Democrat, that he believed in everything that Kennedy had done. And for so long, the Camelot, the family of Camelot, the Kennedy allure was such a prominent figure in Democratic policies and campaigning until the Obama years. And that's when the Democratic Party switched its focus and switched its ideology as well onto this progressive leftist movement, as well as really trying to evoke the minorities of America and the LGBTQ, like the very extremes. Kennedy attempted to distance himself from the controversial ad, stating that he had no involvement within the making of the ad or the approval, which in fact this particular PAC stated that they did it as a last minute push for name recognition, and it specifically did not want to get into the policies. It was just about name recognition. Doubts linger about his viability as an independent candidate, but one thing is for certain. RFK Jr.'s star is continuing to rise in this election process. He is still trying to get on the ballots of all 50 states. However, he is gaining in the polls. And now it is now drawing the ire of both really the DNC, but also the Trump campaign is now starting to attack Kennedy. And let's face it, when you start getting personal attacks by the Trump campaign, that means you are doing something right. We will continue to watch RFK Jr.'s continuous ascent, but I can state that in speaking to individuals, voters for both that are both registered Democrat, Republican, as well as non-party affiliated or independent, there is an appeal. RFK is appealing to a very moderate centrist group because he is seen as a possibility or a potential of unifying this country, bringing a voice of common sense. So it is really important that we continue to watch this election, because let's look at the registered voters right now. 41% of registered voters are independent or non-party affiliated versus 28% Democratic and a little less on the Republican Party. So this is a very key block that we're looking at, and it's very exciting to see that this man, RFK Jr., is potentially bringing out a very grassroots effort in upending a very tumultuous campaign period between Biden and Trump. So we will continue to follow RFK Jr., and we will be right back after this quick commercial break.